I am Jessie, 32 years old and a single mom to the sweetest 8-year-old boy you could ever meet. Last Christmas at my mother's house still haunts me. Tyler got socks and school supplies while my sister Vanessa's kids unwrapped brand new iPhones with squeals of excitement. The look in my son's eyes as he quietly asked, "Did I do something wrong?" Mommy shattered my heart into a million pieces. I hugged him tight, holding back tears. That night, while everyone slept, I smiled for the first time that day as I removed every single family member from my health insurance plan. Before I continue with this story, I would love to know where you all are watching from. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe if family drama stories resonate with you. Life as a single mom has never been easy. I work over 50 hours a week as a nurse practitioner at Memorial Hospital, often taking extra shifts whenever they become available. My ex-husband and I divorced 4 years ago, and while he was ordered to pay child support, the payments come sporadically, if at all. Most months, I find myself sending reminder texts that go unanswered while bills pile up on my kitchen counter. Despite these challenges, I prioritize my son's needs above everything else. We live in a modest 2-bedroom apartment on the east side of town. It is nothing fancy, but I have done my best to make it feel like home with second-hand furniture that I have slowly upgraded piece by piece. The walls of Tyler's room are covered with space posters and science diagrams that he loves. Our living room showcases his art projects and school achievements rather than expensive decor. My car is a 10-year-old Honda that has seen better days. The air conditioning stopped working last summer, and the passenger window no longer rolls down. Every few months, something new breaks and I have to decide whether to fix it immediately or wait until the next paycheck. I keep an emergency fund for car repairs because without reliable transportation, I cannot get to work and Tyler cannot get to school. The irony of my financial situation is not lost on me. I have an advanced degree and a good job on paper, but between the student loans that still hang over my head and the cost of raising a child alone in this economy, my bank account rarely sees a comfortable balance. Each month is a careful dance of paying bills, buying groceries, covering Tyler's activities, and hopefully setting a tiny amount aside for emergencies. Tyler is the brightest spot in my life. At 8 years old, he shows a maturity beyond his years and rarely complains about our circumstances. His teachers consistently praise his academic abilities, especially in science and math. The only health concern we manage is his mild asthma, which requires regular medication and occasional doctor visits when seasons change. What Tyler loves most is building things. Our living room often transforms into a workshop of Lego constructions, makeshift science experiments, or contraptions built from recycled materials. For his birthday last year, instead of asking for video games or trendy toys, he wanted books about engineering and a set of basic tools so he could build something important someday. His words, not mine. Despite seeing his cousins with the latest gadgets and designer clothes, Tyler never asks for expensive gifts. He seems to understand our financial limitations without me having to explain them explicitly. When Christmas or his birthday approaches, his wish lists are always reasonable and thoughtful. This past Christmas, watching him carefully write his letter to Santa, requesting only a science kit and some books about space, made me both proud and heartbroken. One of Tyler's most beautiful qualities is his generosity. Weeks before any family gathering, he starts creating handmade gifts for everyone. Last Christmas, he spent hours making personalized bookmarks for his grandma, decorative pencil holders for his cousins, and a special photo frame for my sister, with a picture of all the cousins together. He wrapped each one in newspaper that he decorated himself with hand-drawn holiday designs. The stark contrast between my small family unit and my sister's situation could not be more pronounced. Vanessa is 362 years older than me and married to Robert, a successful real estate developer whose family business has thrived for generations. They live in a 5,000 square FT house in the most exclusive neighborhood in town, complete with a pool, home theater, and more bedrooms than people to fill them. Vanessa has never worked since getting married 12 years ago. She spends her days at yoga classes, lunch with friends, and managing their social calendar. Their children, Sophia, who is 10, and Jackson, who is 12, attend the most expensive private school in the area and participate in every premium activity available, from horseback riding to private tennis coaching. The dynamic between Vanessa and me dates back to our childhood. She was always our mother's favorite, the golden child who could do no wrong. I was the responsible one, the fixer, the one who would step in when things got difficult. This pattern has continued into adulthood with expectations for each of us firmly established in our family system. Our mother Barbara was widowed 5 years ago when our father passed away from a heart attack. At 64, she lives comfortably on his pension and social security, plus the proceeds from selling their larger family home and moving to a smaller but still nice house in a good neighborhood. She is not wealthy by any means, but certainly not struggling either. 3 years ago, when I changed jobs and received a comprehensive benefits package, I made what I now recognize as a critical mistake. During open enrollment, I added my mother, sister, her husband, and their 2 children to my health insurance plan. At the time, Robert's company was going through a restructuring, and their premiums were set to increase dramatically. What was supposed to be a temporary arrangement to help them through a transitional period became a permanent expectation. This decision costs me an extra $400 every month that comes straight out of my already stretched paycheck. Neither my mother nor my sister has ever offered to reimburse me for these costs, despite the fact that Robert's business recovered quickly and they continued their lavish lifestyle without interruption. The financial burden falls entirely on me, the person in the family who can least afford it. Last year, Sophia needed braces, and Jackson had a sports injury requiring physical therapy. My insurance covered the majority of the costs, saving my sister thousands of dollars. When I received the benefit statements showing what had been paid on their behalf, I felt a twinge of resentment that grew stronger with each passing month. I never directly asked for them to contribute toward the insurance costs out of a complicated mix of pride, conflict, avoidance, and the deeply ingrained family expectation that I am the helper, the giver, the one who sacrifices. But with each passing month, as I juggled bills and picked up extra shifts, the weight of this financial responsibility became increasingly difficult to bear, especially knowing that my sacrifices were being taken for granted by people who had far more financial resources than I did. 2 months before last Christmas, my mother started a family group chat to discuss holiday plans. After sorting out the logistics of who would bring what dish and what time we would gather, she dropped what seemed like welcome news. "I think we should all agree to only do small gifts this year," she typed. "Nothing over $50 per person. Times are a bit tight, and the important thing is being together." I felt an immediate sense of relief wash over me. A $50 limit meant I could participate fully without the financial anxiety that usually accompanied holiday shopping. In previous years, I had stretched my budget to breaking point, trying to keep up with the expensive gifts from my sister's family, often putting purchases on credit cards that took months to pay off. The group chat continued with everyone seemingly on board with the plan. My sister sent a gift of someone nodding in agreement. My mother elaborated on her philosophy about the season being about family rather than material things. I contributed enthusiastically to the conversation, suggesting we could focus on thoughtful personal gifts rather than expensive ones. "This will be so much more meaningful," I wrote, "and better for teaching the kids about the true spirit of Christmas." Everyone agreed, and I felt a rare sense of equity in our family dynamic. For once, we would all be operating under the same constraints, and Tyler would not have to watch his cousins open extravagant gifts while he received more modest ones. The playing field would be level, and that meant everything to me. That evening, I sat down with Tyler to talk about his Christmas wish list. With the $50 limit in mind, I explained that Santa would be bringing one special gift and that we would also be exchanging small presents with the family. Tyler thought carefully before answering. "I really want that science kit we saw at the museum store, the one where you can build your own solar system and make it light up." I remembered it clearly priced at $45, just within our new budget. His other requests were equally modest. A new winter coat since he had outgrown last year's some books about space exploration, and perhaps a new set of colored pencils for his drawings. I wrote down his list, my heart swelling with love for this understanding, undemanding child. When I asked if there was anything else he might want, he simply shook his head and said, "That is enough, Mom." I know Santa has lots of kids to visit. The contrast with my niece and nephew could not have been more striking. In previous years, their Christmas lists resembled inventory sheets from electronic stores and high-end department stores, with items often totaling thousands of dollars. I wondered if the $50 limit would be a challenging adjustment for them. Over the next few weeks, I carefully planned my holiday budget. I picked up 2 extra overnight shifts at the hospital, setting aside that money specifically for Christmas gifts. I created a spreadsheet listing everyone in the family and allocated $50 for each person, with a bit extra for Tyler from Santa. Shopping became a strategic operation. I visited thrift stores, scoured online sales, and compared prices across different retailers to make every dollar count. For my mother, I found a beautiful vintage brooch that reminded me of one my grandmother had worn, along with a photo album I filled with family pictures. For my sister, I selected a lovely scarf and a book by an author she had mentioned enjoying. For Robert, a set of specialty barbecue sauces and a grilling tool he had admired at our summer gathering. For my niece and nephew, I chose books related to their interests along with small gift cards to their favorite ice cream shop. Tyler's gift shopping was equally thoughtful. He saved his small allowance for weeks to buy materials to make presents. For his grandma, he created a hand-painted bird feeder. For his aunt and uncle, he made a decorative serving tray using tiles he had painted himself. For his cousins, he assembled custom friendship bracelet kits with detailed instructions written in his careful handwriting. We spent evenings wrapping these gifts together using simple red and green paper I had purchased on clearance the previous year. Tyler insisted on making his own gift tags carefully, writing each person's name and decorating the tags with tiny drawings personalized for each recipient. I watched him work with such concentration and care, his tongue sticking out slightly as he focused on making each tag perfect. Our other holiday tradition was baking cookies to bring to the family gathering. The weekend before Christmas, we turned our small kitchen into a bakery, making sugar cookies, gingerbread, and peanut butter blossoms. The apartment filled with the smell of vanilla and spices as Tyler helped me ingredients and decorate cookies with careful precision. We packaged them in dollar store tins lined with wax paper, adding handwritten labels that read, "Baked with love by Tyler and Jessie." In the days leading up to Christmas, I had several phone conversations with my mother about the holiday plans. During one call, she mentioned offhandedly that Vanessa had been shopping at the mall. I reminded her about our $50 agreement. My mother said, "But you know how she is around the holidays. She just loves to give gifts." Something in her tone made me uneasy, but she is sticking to the budget, right? We all agreed that was important this year. There was a slight pause before my mother replied, "Well, they can afford to be a bit more generous. I cannot really tell them how to spend their money." "Mom, the point was to keep things even, especially for the kids," I said, trying to keep the concern out of my voice. "Tyler's going to notice if his cousins get expensive gifts and he does not." "Oh, do not worry," my mother assured me. "I will keep my gifts to the children equal. What Vanessa and Robert do is their business." I hung up with a familiar nod of anxiety forming in my stomach. Despite the agreement, it seemed that once again different rules would apply to different branches of the family. Christmas Eve arrived cold and clear. I loaded our car with carefully wrapped presents, a container of homemade cookies, and a casserole for the holiday dinner. Tyler vibrated with excitement in the passenger seat, clutching a small bag containing the handmade gifts he was most proud of. His cheeks were flushed with anticipation as we drove through neighborhoods decorated with colorful lights and inflatable holiday characters. "Do you think Grandma will like my bird feeder?" he asked for perhaps the 10th time that day. "She is going to love it," I assured him. "You put so much thought and work into it." We pulled up to my mother's suburban home around 4:00 in the afternoon. The house was beautifully decorated with white lights outlining the roof and windows, and a wreath adorned with silver and gold ornaments hanging on the front door. I noticed my sister's black luxury SUV already parked in the prime spot nearest the entrance, forcing us to park on the street. Tyler helped carry the lighter items as we made our way to the front door, which opened before we could even ring the bell. My mother greeted us with hugs and exclamations about how much Tyler had grown since Thanksgiving. The house smelled of pine from the large Christmas tree in the living room and cinnamon from whatever was baking in the oven. "Everyone is in the family room," my mother said, taking the casserole from my hands. "Sophia and Jackson have been asking when Tyler would arrive." We followed her through the house, Tyler walking slightly behind me as we approached the noise of the gathering. The moment we entered the family room, I noticed the mountain of presents under and around the Christmas tree. Far more than would be expected with our $50 per person agreement. Many were wrapped in expensive-looking paper with elaborate bows and ribbons that I recognized from the high-end department store in the mall. Vanessa was adjusting some of the packages as we walked in. She looked up with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "Finally, you are here. We were about to start the Christmas movie without you." Robert nodded from his position on the couch, barely looking up from his phone. My niece and nephew were sitting on the floor near the tree, already dressed in matching Christmas pajamas that looked brand new. Tyler moved forward shyly, clutching his bag of handmade gifts. "Hi, Sophia. Hi, Jackson. Merry Christmas." Jackson looked up briefly. "Hey," then immediately returned his attention to the tablet in his hands. Sophia offered a slightly warmer greeting before asking Tyler if he had played the latest video game everyone at school was talking about. "No, I have not gotten that one," Tyler said quietly. I saw his eyes drift to the pile of presents, undoubtedly making comparisons already. As I helped my mother in the kitchen, I overheard Vanessa talking in a hushed but excited tone. "Wait until you see what we got the kids this year," she was saying. "We found the most amazing deals on those phones they have been begging for. And wait until they see the gaming systems." Robert's bonus came through bigger than expected, so we decided to splurge a little. I felt my stomach tighten. So much for the $50 limit. I caught my mother's eye, but she quickly looked away, busying herself with the dinner rolls. "I thought we had agreed to keep things simple this year," I said carefully, trying to keep my voice neutral. My mother sighed. "I mentioned that to Vanessa again yesterday, but she said the kids would be so disappointed, and you know how important Christmas morning is to her." "What about Tyler?" I asked quietly. "Do not you think he will notice the difference?" "Children are resilient," my mother replied, a response that answered nothing and resolved nothing. The Christmas Eve dinner was an elaborate affair with a perfectly cooked turkey, multiple side dishes, and 3 different dessert options. Throughout the meal, the conversation repeatedly turned to Vanessa's children and their accomplishments. Jackson just made the elite travel soccer team. Vanessa announced the coach said he has never seen such natural talent. And Sophia's piano teacher thinks she should consider performing in the regional competition this spring, Robert added. My mother beamed with pride. "That is wonderful, my talented grandchildren." I waited for someone to ask about Tyler to include him in the conversation when no one did. I gently prompted Tyler, "Why do not you tell everyone about your science fair project that won first place?" Tyler looked up from his plate, momentarily surprised to be addressed. "Oh, I built a working model of a renewable energy system. It showed how solar and wind power could work together." "How nice," Vanessa said with minimal interest before immediately turning to my mother. "Mom, did I tell you Jackson scored the winning goal in his last game?" I watched Tyler's small shoulders slump slightly as the conversation moved on without any further acknowledgement of his achievement. This pattern continued throughout the evening, with Vanessa's children receiving lavish attention, while Tyler faded into the background, his quiet presence barely registering with the family. As the evening wound down, my mother announced that everyone would be staying overnight to make Christmas morning more special. Tyler and I were assigned to my old childhood bedroom, which now served as a guest room with twin beds. Vanessa's family would stay in the larger guest suite with its private bathroom and king-sized bed. After helping with dishes and enduring an hour of Robert's work stories, I finally excused myself to get Tyler ready for bed. In the quiet of the bedroom, away from the rest of the family, I could see the questions forming in his eyes. "Are all those presents under the tree really following the $50 rule?" he asked as he changed into his pajamas, ones from last year that were slightly too small. Now I hesitated, not wanting to lie but also not wanting to spoil his Christmas. "People sometimes have different interpretations of agreements," I said carefully. Tyler nodded sagely as if he understood the adult complexities at play. "It is okay, Mom. Christmas is not really about presents anyway." I hugged him tightly, my heart aching with love for this kind, understanding child. "That is right, buddy. It is about being together and showing love." As Tyler drifted off to sleep, I lay awake in the other twin bed, staring at the ceiling of my childhood room. Through the wall, I could hear whispers and the distinctive sound of more packages being arranged. Sleep eluded me as I contemplated the years of family dynamics playing out yet again, wondering if anything would ever change. Christmas morning dawned, bright and cold sunlight streaming through the thin curtains of the guest room. Tyler was up at 6:30, his excitement palpable despite my lingering concerns about the day ahead. I put on a brave face and my warmest smile as we headed downstairs in our pajamas to join the family. The kitchen was already a hive of activity. My mother was preparing a breakfast casserole, while Vanessa arranged pastries from an expensive bakery on a decorative platter. Robert sat at the counter scrolling through his phone, occasionally showing my mother something that made her laugh. Sophia and Jackson were nowhere to be seen. "Merry Christmas," Tyler announced. As we entered, my mother turned with a smile. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart, the cinnamon rolls will be ready in 10 minutes. Vanessa barely looked up. "The kids are already in the family room. They are desperate to open presents, but we told them they had to wait for everyone." Tyler headed toward the family room while I stayed behind to help with breakfast preparations. Through the doorway, I could see him approach his cousins who were sitting on the floor near the tree, each absorbed in their tablets. "Merry Christmas," he said, his voice bright with holiday cheer. "Yeah, Merry Christmas," Jackson replied without looking up. "Mom, when can we open presents?" he called out, his voice carrying into the kitchen. After breakfast, Vanessa replied, "Be patient for once." The breakfast itself was tense with anticipation. Sophia and Jackson rushed through their food, repeatedly asking if they could be excused to start the gift exchange. Tyler ate quietly, his eyes occasionally drifting to the tree and the pile of presents that seemed to have multiplied overnight. Finally, my mother announced it was time for presents. We gathered in the family room, adults with coffee cups in hand, children sitting cross-legged on the floor. The contrast between the cousins was striking. Sophia and Jackson practically vibrated with anticipation while Tyler sat calmly, his hands folded in his lap. We will go youngest to oldest, my mother declared, a tradition in our family for as long as I could remember. So Sophia goes first, then Tyler, then Jackson, then the adults. I noticed the unfairness immediately. By right of age, Tyler should have gone first, being 8 to Sophia's 10, but before I could say anything, my mother was already handing Sophia a large, beautifully wrapped box. "This one is from Grandma," she said with a smile. Sophia tore into the package, revealing an expensive-looking dollhouse complete with furniture and accessories. "I love it," she squealed, jumping up to hug my mother. I recognized the set from a high-end toy store where it retailed for well over $100. "And now," Tyler, my mother said, reaching for a much smaller package. Tyler accepted the gift with a polite, "Thank you, Grandma," before carefully unwrapping it. Inside was a package containing 3 pairs of socks with science-themed patterns, a set of school supplies, and a $25 gift card to a bookstore. He smiled genuinely. "These are cool socks. I like the DNA pattern, thank you." My heart constricted as I watched him fold the wrapping paper neatly and set it aside, showing more care for the discarded paper than Sophia had for her expensive gift. The disparity was glaring, but Tyler maintained his composure with a maturity that made my chest ache. Jackson went next, receiving a gaming headset and controller that matched the newest console, plus a $100 gift card to download games. "Sweet," he exclaimed. "This is exactly what I wanted." The pattern continued with the remaining gifts. From my mother, I received a generic bath set and a $30 gift card to a department store. Vanessa received a designer handbag that I knew cost at least $300. Then came the gifts from Vanessa and Robert. Sophia and Jackson each received brand new iPhones in addition to expensive clothing, the latest video games, and various electronic accessories. Tyler opened his gift from them to find a generic board game that looked like it had been hastily purchased from a discount store, the kind of thing you might buy for a distant acquaintance's child. "Thank you, Aunt Vanessa." And Uncle Robert, Tyler said politely, examining the game as if it were a treasure. I gave my sister a pointed look, which she either missed or deliberately ignored as she helped her children unbox their new phones. Throughout the gift exchange, I watched Tyler's expression carefully. He maintained his smile and expressed genuine gratitude for each present, but I could see the confusion in his eyes. The silent questions forming as he observed the stark differences in what each child received. After all the gifts had been opened, the living room looked like a high-end electronics store had exploded on one side, while Tyler sat quietly with his small pile of modest gifts. He helped clean up the discarded wrapping paper without being asked, gathering it into a neat pile for the recycling bin. As the adults moved to the kitchen to prepare Christmas lunch, Tyler approached me in the hallway. His voice was barely audible when he asked the question that broke my heart. "Did I do something wrong, Mommy?" I kneeled down to his level, taking his small hands in mine. "No, baby, you did absolutely nothing wrong. You are perfect exactly as you are." "Then why did Sophia and Jackson get so much more than me? Is it because they are better kids?" I pulled him into a tight hug, fighting back tears as I struggled to find the right words to explain adult failures and family dysfunction to an 8-year-old. Different families have different ways of showing love. I finally said, "Some people think expensive gifts are important, but you and I know that is not true. The most valuable gifts come from the heart." He nodded against my shoulder, but I could feel the hurt radiating from him. No explanation could fully erase the feeling of being less valued, less important than his cousins. It was a lesson in inequality that no child should have to learn, especially not on Christmas. While Tyler was distracted by a Christmas movie my mother put on for the children, I found her alone in the kitchen preparing vegetables for lunch. "Mom, can I talk to you for a minute?" I asked, keeping my voice low. She glanced up. "Of course, dear. Can you pass me that peeler, the gifts today?" I began, struggling to keep my tone even. There was quite a difference between what Tyler received and what Sophia and Jackson got. My mother sighed, putting down the potato she had been peeling. "Jessie, we have been through this. Vanessa and Robert have more disposable income. They can afford to be more generous, but we had an agreement, $50 per person. That was the rule everyone agreed to." "Rules are flexible in families," she replied dismissively, "and Vanessa's children are used to nicer things." Tyler seemed perfectly happy with his gifts. Before I could respond, Vanessa bustled into the kitchen carrying empty glasses. Mom, Robert wants to know if we have any more of that special eggnog left in the refrigerator door, dear. My mother replied, seeing us together. Vanessa paused. Is everything okay? You both look serious. We were just discussing the presents, I said, deciding to address the issue directly. I thought we had all agreed to a $50 limit this year. Vanessa laughed lightly. Oh, that well, we started shopping and just could not help ourselves. The kids had their hearts set on those phones, and Christmas is about making children happy, is not it? All children, I said pointedly, not just yours. Tyler seemed perfectly content with his gifts. Vanessa said with a shrug, he is easy to please, my two have specific expectations, because you have created those expectations, I replied, my frustration growing. You have taught them to equate love with expensive gifts. My mother stepped between us. Girls, please, it is Christmas, let us not argue. I am not arguing, Vanessa said, her voice taking on the wounded tone she had perfected since childhood. I am just stating facts. We have different standards for our children, that is all. Not everyone can afford the same lifestyle, and that is okay. The implications strung. Before I could formulate a response that would not escalate the situation, Robert called from the other room and Vanessa left to attend to him. My mother gave me a look that was part sympathy, part exasperation. Let it go, Jessie. Vanessa is who she is. You know, she did not mean anything by it. But I knew exactly what my sister meant, and judging by my mother's quick defense, so did she. Once again, the family hierarchy was firmly established through material goods, with Vanessa and her children at the top, and Tyler and me at the bottom. The $50 agreement had been nothing but empty words, a false promise of equity that had never been intended to be kept. By early afternoon, I had made up my mind. I approached my mother while she was arranging desserts on a serving tray. Mom, I think Tyler and I are going to head home a bit early, I said quietly. She looked up in surprise, but we have not even had the big dinner yet, and I thought everyone was staying until tomorrow morning. Tyler is not feeling great, I lied, hatting the dishonesty but seeing no alternative that would not create a scene. I think he might be coming down with something and I would rather get him home to rest. My mother frowned. He seemed fine earlier. Is this about the presents, Jessie? You always were sensitive about these things, even as a child. I bit back the retort that rose to my lips. It is not just about me being sensitive. It is about fairness and keeping your word. But yes, Tyler does not feel well, and I think it would be best if we left. With obvious disapproval, my mother helped me gather our things while I went to find Tyler, who was sitting alone in a corner of the family room reading one of the books I had given him, while his cousins played with their new electronics on the other side of the room. Hey buddy, how would you feel about heading home? We could watch a movie in our pajamas and have some hot chocolate with those marshmallows you like. Tyler looked up, relief washing over his features. Can we really go home now? His eagerness to leave only confirmed I was making the right decision. We packed quickly, gathering the few gifts we had received and the containers from the food we had brought. Tyler carefully placed his handmade gifts that had barely been acknowledged under the tree where they would be found later. The goodbyes were awkward and perfunctory. My mother made a show of concern about Tyler's supposed illness, feeling his forehead for a temperature that was not there. Vanessa barely looked up from helping Sophia set up her new phone, offering a distracted, "Feel better soon," without making eye contact. Robert gave a casual wave from his position on the couch. Only my niece and nephew seemed completely unbothered by our departure, too engrossed in their new possessions to notice. As we pulled away from the house, the silence in the car was heavy with unspoken feelings. Tyler stared out the window at the Christmas decorations we passed, his expression thoughtful. "Are you mad, Mom?" he finally asked, his voice small. "Not at you. Never at you," I assured him quickly. "I am just disappointed in how some things went today." Tyler nodded solemnly. "It is okay about the presents, I like my socks. The DNA ones are really cool." His attempt to make me feel better only intensified the ache in my heart. We drove in silence for a few more minutes before Tyler spoke again. "Why does Grandma treat Sophia and Jackson differently than me?" The question hung in the air, its innocence making it all the more painful. I struggled to find an answer that would be honest without burdening him with adult complexities. "Sometimes people have favorites even though they should not," I finally said. "It does not mean you did anything wrong or that you are less special. It just means they are missing out on seeing how amazing you truly are." He seemed to consider this carefully before responding. "That makes me sad for Grandma. Then she is missing out." I reached across the console to squeeze his hand, amazed yet again by his emotional intelligence and resilience. "That is exactly right, buddy. It is their loss, not yours." On the way home, I impulsively pulled into the parking lot of Tyler's favorite ice cream shop, which was surprisingly open on Christmas Day. "I think we deserve a special treat, do not you?" I asked with a smile. His face lit up. "Really? Ice cream for Christmas? Why not? Let us start our own tradition." Inside, we ordered elaborate sundaes and sat at a small table by the window watching snowflakes begin to fall outside. Away from the tension of my family's house, Tyler gradually returned to his usual cheerful self, telling me about a book he wanted to read and a science project he was planning for when school resumed. "You know what, Mom?" he said between bites of ice cream. "I like our Christmas better when it is just us anyway." His words validated my decision to leave early and suggested a path forward that might involve creating more distance between our small loving family unit and the larger family dynamic that so often left us feeling diminished. When we arrived home, our modest apartment felt like a sanctuary. The small Christmas tree we had decorated together stood in the corner of the living room with a few additional presents I had saved to open at home arranged beneath it. The decorations were simple, many of them handmade by Tyler over the years, but they carried genuine meaning and memories. "Can we open these now?" Tyler asked, pointing to the remaining gifts. "Absolutely," I said. "This is our Christmas now." The joy on his face as he opened the science kit he had wanted and a few small additional surprises I had managed to afford was pure and untainted by comparison. We spent the evening building the solar system model together. The disappointment of the morning gradually fading as we created our own moment of holiday magic. After Tyler went to bed exhausted from the emotional day, I sat alone in the living room with a cup of tea, processing everything that had happened. My phone buzzed with notifications I had been ignoring. There were several messages from Vanessa, including a photo of Sophia and Jackson posing with all their expensive gifts with the caption, "Christmas success." As I was about to put the phone down, it rang with a call from my mother. "Hello," I answered, trying to keep the weariness from my voice. "Jessie, I just wanted to check on Tyler. Is he feeling any better?" "Yes, much better now that we are home," I replied. There was a pause before she continued. "I feel like you left because you were upset about the gifts. I wish you would not be so sensitive about these things. Vanessa was quite hurt that you left so abruptly." The familiar pattern of making me responsible for everyone else's feelings emerged yet again. "Mom, we had an agreement. $50 per person. That was what everyone agreed to. It was not fair to Tyler to see such a dramatic difference in how the children were treated." "Life is not always fair, Jessie," my mother said with a sigh. "Vanessa and Robert can afford to give their children nicer things. That is just reality. It is not about what they can afford. It is about keeping your word and treating the children equally, especially at Christmas." "Well, I am sorry you feel that way. I hope you will reconsider coming back tomorrow for leftover dinner. Everyone misses you." I doubted that very much but merely replied, "I will think about it before ending the call." As I sat in the quiet apartment, my gaze fell on the mail I had collected from our box on the way in. Among the envelopes was a statement from my insurance company detailing recent claims. I opened it to find a breakdown of services for Sophia's dental visit the previous month, a procedure that had cost over $2,000, of which my insurance had covered $1,800. The statement was a stark reminder of the financial support I had been providing to my sister's family for years, without acknowledgement or gratitude. I pulled out my laptop and began calculating the total amount I had spent supporting my mother, sister, and her family through my health insurance over the past 3 years. The figure made me feel physically ill. $400 per month for 36 months, plus the uncovered portions of their medical expenses that I had often quietly paid. Nearly $20,000 from someone who sometimes struggled to pay for her son's asthma medication. As this realization crystallized, something shifted inside me. The hurt and disappointment transformed into a clarity I had never experienced before. I had been enabling a pattern of exploitation, allowing myself to be used financially while being treated as less than. And worse, I had allowed my son to be affected by these unhealthy dynamics. In that moment, sitting among the wrapping paper from our modest but joyful evening, I made a decision that would change everything. The week between Christmas and New Year's became a period of research and reflection. While Tyler enjoyed his school break with his new science kit and reading his new books, I spent his nap times and late evenings educating myself about family dynamics, favoritism, and the importance of boundaries. I discovered articles and books that described patterns eerily similar to my own family situation. The golden child versus the scapegoat, the enabler who maintains peace at any cost. The uneven distribution of emotional and financial burdens. Reading these descriptions was both painful and liberating, putting names and frameworks to experiences I had normalized for decades. At the recommendation of a colleague, I scheduled an appointment with a therapist who specialized in family systems. During our first session, I poured out the story of Christmas and the years of inequity that preceded it. What you are describing is a classic pattern of financial exploitation within an already unbalanced family dynamic. The therapist explained, the question now is whether you are ready to establish boundaries knowing that they will likely not be well received. I think I have to, I replied. Not just for me but for Tyler. I do not want him growing up thinking this is what he deserves. What specific boundaries are you considering? She asked. The health insurance is the most obvious one, I said. I cannot keep carrying the financial burden for people who clearly have more resources than I do, especially when they show so little appreciation or reciprocity. We discussed strategies for communicating these boundaries and preparing for the potential backlash. The therapist helped me understand that my family's negative reaction would not mean I was making the wrong choice, but rather that the system was fighting to maintain its equilibrium. Armed with this new understanding, I conducted a thorough assessment of my financial situation. I created a detailed spreadsheet of my income, expenses, debt, and savings. The reality was sobering, but also clarifying. Without the extra $400 going toward family members' insurance premiums each month, I could build an emergency fund, start saving for Tyler's education, and perhaps even address some long-deferred maintenance on my feed, car, and apartment. The next step was to research the insurance options. I spent hours on the phone with my HR department understanding exactly what would be involved in removing family members from my plan, and when changes could be made. I learned that while open enrollment had passed, I could make changes due to a qualifying life event, which could include a simple decision to no longer provide coverage for extended family members. I also consulted briefly with an attorney friend who confirmed that I had no legal obligation to provide health insurance for my mother or sisters, family regardless of how long I had been doing so. Family expectations are not legally binding contracts, she explained. You have every right to make changes that protect your financial well-being. With this information in hand, I began the formal process of removing my mother, sister, brother-in-law, and their children from my health insurance plan. The HR representative walked me through the necessary forms and explained that coverage would terminate at the end of the following month, giving them adequate time to secure alternative insurance. Throughout this process, I was careful not to announce my decision prematurely. I wanted everything in place before facing the inevitable confrontation. This was not about creating drama or seeking revenge, but about establishing necessary boundaries for my own well-being and Tyler's future. While making these practical arrangements, I also focused on preparing Tyler for the changes ahead, without burdening him with adult concerns. I began having age-appropriate conversations about standing up for yourself and the importance of being treated with respect. You know how we have rules in our house. I asked him one evening as we washed dishes together. He nodded, like always telling the truth and picking up our toys. Exactly. Well, grown-ups need to have rules too about how they treat each other, and when someone does not follow those rules, sometimes we need to take a step back from spending so much time with them. Tyler considered this thoughtfully, like when Mason kept taking my pencils at school and I had to sit at a different table for a while. Very similar, I agreed, amazed at his ability to find relevant parallels. Sometimes giving people some space helps them understand that their actions have consequences. In the weeks that followed, I also focused on building a stronger support network outside of my family. I reconnected with friends I had neglected due to family obligations, arranged playdates for Tyler, with classmates whose parents I genuinely enjoyed, and became more involved in community activities that brought us both joy. We joined a weekend science club at the local museum, where Tyler thrived among other curious children. And I found camaraderie with parents who valued education and creativity. I also discovered a single-parent support group that met twice monthly, offering both practical advice and emotional support from people who understood the unique challenges I faced. Most importantly, I began establishing new traditions for Tyler and me. We designated Sunday mornings as our special adventure time, exploring parks, museums, or community events. We created a gratitude jar where we would write down something positive from each day. We planned movie nights, game tournaments, and cooking experiments that filled our home with laughter and strengthened our bond. Through all of these changes, I was building something crucial. The understanding that Tyler and I were a complete family unit on our own, worthy of respect, and capable of creating a joyful life regardless of how others treated us. By the time the insurance notification letters were automatically generated and sent to my mother and sister, we had established a foundation strong enough to weather the storm I knew was coming. The phone rang at 6:30 on a Tuesday morning, jolting me awake. I knew before checking the screen that it would be my mother or sister, and I was not surprised to see Vanessa's name flashing. "What the hell is this letter about our insurance being terminated?" she demanded without preamble when I answered. I took a deep breath, centering myself before responding with the calm clarity I had practiced. "Good morning, Vanessa. Yes, I have decided to remove non-immediate family members from my health insurance plan." "You cannot do that," she sputtered. "Sophia has an orthodontist appointment next week and Jackson has his sports physical." "I understand this may be inconvenient," I replied, maintaining my composure. "The coverage continues until the end of next month, which gives you adequate time to arrange alternative insurance." "But why would you do this?" Her tone shifted from anger to a manipulative whine I recognized from childhood. "Is this because of Christmas? Are you really that petty?" "This is not about being petty. This is about making financial decisions that align with my responsibilities to myself and Tyler. I have been carrying this additional expense for 3 years with no offer of contribution from you or Robert despite your significantly greater financial resources." There was a moment of stunned silence before she exploded again. "I cannot believe you are bean counting with family. Mom is going to be devastated when she finds out." "Mom has already received her notification letter," I said, "and this is not bean counting. This is about fairness and respect. Something that has been notably absent in our family dynamic for some time. You have always been jealous of me," Vanessa accused, falling back on a familiar narrative. "Just because Robert and I have been successful and can provide nicely for our children." "This conversation is not productive," I said firmly. "I have made my decision. You have until the end of next month to secure new coverage. I am happy to have a calm discussion about this when you are ready, but I will not be yelled at or manipulated." I ended the call as she was mid-sentence, something I had never done before. My hands were shaking, but not from fear or doubt. It was the physical manifestation of stepping into my power for perhaps the first time in my life. Within the hour, my phone was flooded with text messages and missed calls not just from Vanessa and my mother, but from Robert and even extended family members who had been enlisted to pressure me. I silenced notifications and focused on getting Tyler ready for school, protecting our morning routine from the chaos swirling outside our door. After dropping him off, I sent a brief text to my mother and sister. "I'm open to discussing this situation in person this weekend, Saturday at 2 p.m. at the coffee shop on Main Street. This will be a calm adult conversation, or it will not happen at all." The response was a flurry of protests about the urgency of the situation and accusations about my character and intentions. I did not engage, simply reiterating the time and place for the meeting and making it clear that was the only opportunity I was offering. Saturday arrived cold and bright. I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, selecting a table in the corner that would afford some privacy while still being in a public place where voices would need to be kept at reasonable levels. I had prepared thoroughly for this conversation, bringing a folder containing documentation of the insurance costs I had shouldered for years, a breakdown of the benefits they had received, and even a list of affordable insurance alternatives they could explore. My mother arrived first, her expression a mixture of hurt and indignation. Vanessa followed minutes later, making a show of checking her watch to emphasize how inconvenient this meeting was for her. Robert had apparently opted out, which was fine with me. "Thank you for coming," I began once they were seated with their drinks. "I know this situation has created strong feelings, but I hope we can discuss it rationally." "There is nothing rational about cutting off your family's health insurance," my mother said immediately. "I cannot believe you would do this to us." "I have not cut anyone off," I clarified. "I have made a financial decision that I should have made years ago. Coverage continues for another 5 weeks, giving you ample time to secure alternatives." "Do you have any idea how expensive private insurance is?" Vanessa demanded. "Actually, I do," I replied, sliding a sheet across the table. "This is what I have been paying monthly to include all of you on my plan. $400 that comes directly out of my paycheck every month. That is $4,800 annually that I have been contributing to your healthcare while sometimes struggling to pay for Tyler's asthma medication." They both stared at the figure, momentarily silenced. "I have also compiled a list of claims processed for your family over the past year." I continued, presenting another document. "The total benefit received amounts to over $15,000. Benefits that were secured through my employment and my premium payments. We never asked you to put us on your insurance." My mother protested weakly. "You did actually." I corrected her gently. 3 years ago, when Robert's company was restructuring, it was supposed to be temporary, but it became an expectation, one that has placed significant financial strain on me. "If you were struggling, you should have said something," Vanessa said, though we all knew that any past attempts to discuss financial equity had been dismissed or redirected. "I am saying something now," I replied, "and I'm also addressing a larger pattern in our family that the Christmas incident brought into sharp focus. There has been a consistent imbalance in how resources, attention, and respect are distributed." My mother shifted uncomfortably. "The Christmas thing again. Jessie, you are making a mountain out of a molehill." "Am I?" I asked, maintaining steady eye contact. "We all agreed to a $50 limit. Tyler received socks and school supplies while his cousins got iPhones. He asked me if he had done something wrong to deserve less. No child should ever have to ask that question, especially not at Christmas." A flicker of shame crossed my mother's face before she composed herself. "Different families have different means. This was not about means," I countered. "This was about keeping your word, about treating the children equally regardless of their parents' financial situations. But more importantly, it was about a pattern that has existed for decades where Vanessa and her family receive preferential treatment, while Tyler and I are treated as less valuable members of the family." "That is not true," Vanessa protested, though her objection lacked conviction. "It is true, and we all know it," I said quietly. "I have accepted it for years, made excuses for it, tried to shield Tyler from it. But watching him process the inequality at Christmas made me realize I cannot protect him by perpetuating these dynamics. I need to model self-respect and appropriate boundaries. So this is punishment," my mother concluded. I shook my head. "This is not punishment. This is consequence. I am not responsible for financing healthcare for adults who have more financial resources than I do, especially when that arrangement is completely one-sided and unappreciated." The conversation continued for nearly 2 hours, cycling through accusations, justifications, and attempts at manipulation. At times, it grew heated. At others, it veered into tearful appeals to family loyalty. Through it all, I maintained my position with a calm clarity that seemed to disconcert them, accustomed as they were to my eventual capitulation. In the end, we reached no true resolution beyond my reiteration that the decision was final and their grudging acknowledgement that they would need to secure alternative coverage. We parted with tension still thick in the air, the future of our family relationships uncertain. The weeks that followed were difficult. There was a period of near-complete estrangement with only tour text messages exchanged about practical matters. Vanessa made a point of telling me how expensive their new insurance was and how it was causing them to cancel a planned vacation. My mother called less frequently, and when she did, conversation was strained and superficial. But alongside this expected fallout, there were unexpected developments. Freed from the financial burden of the extra insurance premiums, I was able to start building a modest emergency fund. I finally repaired my car's air conditioning and replaced Tyler's outgrown winter clothes without stressing about the expense. Most significantly, I noticed a change in Tyler. Away from the constant comparative dynamic with his cousins, he seemed to flourish. His confidence grew, his natural curiosity expanded, and our home felt lighter, filled more often with laughter than stress. 3 months after the insurance confrontation, my mother called with a different tone in her voice. "I have been doing some thinking," she said hesitantly, "about Christmas and other things. I may not have been as fair as I could have been." It was not quite an apology, but it was an acknowledgement which felt like a significant step. "I appreciate you saying that, Mom. Would you and Tyler like to come for dinner next Sunday, just the 3 of us? I found a science museum membership. I thought Tyler might enjoy as a belated gift. The old me would have jumped at this olive branch, eager to restore peace at any cost. The new me considered it carefully. We would like that, but I need to be clear about something first. Going forward, I expect Tyler to be treated with the same love and generosity as his cousins. Equal does not mean identical, but it does mean equitable." There was a pause before my mother replied, "That is fair." Over the following months, our family dynamic underwent a gradual recalibration. Vanessa eventually secured insurance through Robert's company, complaining about the higher premiums, but notably able to afford them without any actual hardship. Our relationship remained more distant than before, but also more honest. The pretense of equality had been stripped away, revealing the transactional nature of her interest in maintaining close ties. My relationship with my mother evolved more positively. Our Sunday dinners became a regular tradition, and I observed her making genuine efforts to connect with Tyler, taking an interest in his science projects and actually listening when he spoke. She never explicitly apologized for the Christmas incident or years of favoritism, but her behavior showed a growing awareness and attempt at correction. As for Tyler and me, we continued building our life on new foundations. I joined a financial planning group that helped me develop better strategies for our future. Tyler's academic achievements were recognized with a partial scholarship to a weekend enrichment program. We created new holiday traditions that centered on experiences rather than material goods. A year after that painful Christmas, we celebrated the holiday in our own apartment with a few close friends. The gifts were modest but thoughtful. The food was simple but delicious, and the atmosphere was warm with genuine affection. As I watched Tyler explain his latest science project to my friend's daughter, his face animated with confidence and joy, I knew that the difficult decisions I had made had been the right ones. The journey of setting boundaries and demanding respect had not been easy. There had been moments of doubt, periods of loneliness, and the persistent ache of family wounds not fully healed. But through it all, Tyler and I had emerged stronger, both as individuals and as a family unit of two. I realized that the greatest gift I could give my son was not material possessions, or even family harmony at any cost, but rather the example of a parent who valued herself enough to expect fair treatment, who had the courage to break unhealthy patterns, and who understood that love without respect is ultimately hollow. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision that hurt in the short term but led to healthier relationships in the long run? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this journey of setting boundaries with family resonated with you, please like and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories about navigating complicated family dynamics. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to stand up for yourself and your children even when it feels impossibly hard. Thank you for being here with me today. And remember, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply say enough. Music.